Meet Alex and Priya. They're both 30 years old. They work in marketing. They each earn $72,000 a year. And after 5 years of saving, cutting expenses, and pretending they don't miss expensive coffee, they have almost exactly the same amount of money sitting in the bank. $80,000. Same age, same income, same savings. But in early 2026, they make two completely different decisions. Alex buys a house. Priya keeps renting. And here's the interesting part. Neither one is obviously making the smarter decision. For the next 20 years, we're going to follow both of them. The mortgage payments, the rent increases, the maintenance bills, the investment returns, the home appreciation, the opportunity costs nobody puts in the real estate brochure. And then, at the end, we're going to answer a question that sounds simple. Was buying the house actually worth it? Because the answer isn't simply renting is throwing money away. And it isn't renting and investing always wins. The real answer depends on something much more interesting. What does each dollar actually do for you? Let's run the numbers. Alex has always wanted to own a home. Not because he has a spreadsheet proving it's the optimal financial decision. He just wants a place that's his. A place where he can drill a hole in the wall without asking a landlord. A small yard. A garage. A kitchen he can slowly renovate. He also likes the idea of knowing exactly where his housing payment is going every month. Priya sees things differently. She values flexibility. Her company allows remote work, and she doesn't know where she'll want to live 5 years from now, let alone 20. She'd rather keep her money liquid and invested than put almost everything she has into one property. So Alex starts looking at houses. Eventually, he finds one listed for $340,000. 3 bedrooms, small yard, decent neighborhood, and according to the listing, a kitchen that just needs a little updating, which, as homeowners quickly discover, is real estate language for prepare yourself. Alex puts down 20%. That's $68,000. But the $68,000 isn't the only money he needs. There are lender fees, an inspection, title costs, prepaid taxes, and insurance. Other closing expenses. Let's estimate those at roughly 3% of the purchase price. $10,200. So before Alex has even moved in, he's spent $78,200. Out of his $80,000 savings, he has less than $2,000 left in the bank. That's not much of an emergency fund. And that's our first lesson. Buying a house doesn't just require enough money to buy the house. It requires enough money to survive owning it. Alex's mortgage is $272,000. He gets a 30-year fixed mortgage at an illustrative 6.8% interest rate. His monthly principal and interest payment is about $1,773. But that's not his actual housing cost. He also has property taxes, homeowner's insurance, and maintenance. For our comparison, we'll estimate his first-year all-in housing cost at roughly $2,526 per month. That's about $30,300 per year. And here's something that gets lost when people talk about mortgages. Alex's first mortgage payment is $1,773, but only around $232 of that payment goes toward reducing his loan balance. The rest is primarily interest. Then there's the property tax, insurance, maintenance. None of those build equity. They're simply the cost of owning the house. That doesn't make them bad. It just makes them costs. Now look at Priya. She rents a comparable 2-bedroom apartment for $1,850 a month. No property tax, no roof replacement, no water heater, no broken furnace, no surprise $3,000 plumbing bill. Her housing cost is roughly $676 less per month than Alex's starting housing cost. And Priya makes a promise to herself. She won't spend that difference. She'll invest it. She puts her original $80,000 into a diversified index fund portfolio. And every month, she invests the difference between her rent and Alex's estimated housing cost. We're assuming an illustrative 8% long-term annual investment return. Not guaranteed, not a prediction, just a model. Because we're not trying to predict the stock market. We're trying to understand the trade-off. 3 years pass. Alex has made 36 mortgage payments. His loan balance has fallen from $272,000 to approximately $262,800. That's only about $9,200 of principal paid down. But his house has appreciated. Assuming a hypothetical 3.5% annual appreciation rate, the $340,000 house is now worth roughly $377,000. So Alex's gross home equity is approximately $114,000. Sounds great, and it is. But there's an important catch. If Alex had to sell the house tomorrow, he wouldn't simply walk away with $114,000. Selling a home costs money. Real estate commissions and other transaction costs can eat into the proceeds. At a hypothetical 6% selling cost, more than $22,000 would disappear from the sale price. So his immediately realizable equity would be closer to $92,000. Meanwhile, Priya's investment portfolio has been compounding. Her original $80,000 has grown. She's also been adding the difference between her rent and Alex's housing costs. After 3 years, under our assumptions, her portfolio is around $127,000. So at year 3, Alex has roughly $114,000 in gross home equity. Priya has roughly $127,000 in invested assets. Priya is ahead. But this isn't the moment to declare a winner. Because 3 years is a terrible time horizon for judging a home purchase. Buying a home has huge upfront transaction costs. If you buy and sell quickly, those costs can eat a massive portion of your potential gain. And Alex isn't planning to sell. He's planning to stay. So let's keep going. Alex is now 40. He's lived in the same house for a decade. The neighborhood has changed. The house has changed. And, unfortunately, the kitchen project that was supposed to cost $4,000 somehow became $11,000. That's another thing about home ownership. The house doesn't send you a bill every month for maintenance. It waits. Then it sends you a very large bill when something breaks. Over 10 years, Alex has spent thousands on repairs, replacements, and improvements. Let's assume his maintenance budget covers most routine expenses, but he still faces several large, unexpected costs. His roof alone costs him roughly $9,000. Meanwhile, his mortgage balance has fallen to about $232,300. And assuming 3.5% annual appreciation, his home is now worth approximately $479,600. That gives him roughly $247,000 in gross home equity. That's a big number, but Priya has been investing for 10 years. Her rent has also increased. That original $1,850 rent is now around $2,486 per month. So her advantage over Alex's housing cost is much smaller than it was at the beginning. But she kept investing, and compounding has been doing something powerful in the background. Her portfolio is now approximately $259,000. The gap has narrowed significantly. Alex has roughly $247,000 in home equity. Priya has roughly $259,000 in her investment portfolio. 10 years in, Priya is still ahead under our assumptions, but only barely. But something important has happened. Alex owns an asset that he can live in. Priya owns an asset that she can sell. Those aren't the same thing. This is where the internet usually turns the comparison into a fight. Team Rent says, buying is overrated. Team Buy says, rent is throwing money away. Both sides are missing something. Alex isn't simply paying a mortgage. He's paying for housing. Priya isn't simply throwing away rent. She's paying for housing too. The difference is what happens around those payments. Alex is converting some of his housing expenses into home equity. Priya is keeping more flexibility and investing the difference. Neither person gets free housing. There is no magical third option where someone lives somewhere for 20 years without paying for it. The real question is, which trade-off creates more value for you? And now we reach the most interesting part. 20 years. Alex and Priya are both 50. 20 years have passed. Alex's mortgage balance is now approximately $154,000. His original $340,000 house, appreciating at 3.5% annually, is now worth roughly $676,500. So his gross home equity is approximately $522,000. That's a huge increase from where he started. But let's make the comparison more realistic. If Alex sells the house, hypothetical selling costs of 6% would be around $40,600. So after paying off the remaining mortgage and those selling costs, he'd have approximately $482,000. Now look at Priya. She never bought the house. She kept renting. Her rent continued rising, but she also kept investing the difference. And because her money stayed invested for 2 decades, compounding had time to become the main character. Under our 8% illustrative return assumption, her portfolio reaches approximately $526,000. So after 20 years, Alex has roughly $522,000 in gross home equity, or roughly $482,000 after hypothetical selling costs. Priya has roughly $526,000 in her investment portfolio. On this particular spreadsheet, Priya comes out very slightly ahead, a difference of only about $4,000 on a gross basis, or roughly $44,000 if Alex sells and pays transaction costs. But here's the part that matters. That does not mean buying a home was a bad decision, and it definitely doesn't mean renting is always better. Because the two numbers are close enough that the real difference between Alex and Priya isn't the math. It's everything the spreadsheet doesn't capture. Alex isn't simply paying for an investment. He's paying for a home, and that has value. Let's look at what the spreadsheet misses. First, transaction costs. Alex paid thousands of dollars just to buy the house. If he had moved after 3 years, he'd have faced another major cost to sell it. That's why the length of time you plan to stay matters enormously. Buying a house for a 2-year stay can be very different from buying one for a 20-year stay. The longer you stay, the more time you have to spread those transaction costs across. Second, concentration risk. Alex's house is one asset, one neighborhood, one city, one local housing market. If the local economy struggles, several things could happen at once. His job could become less secure. His home's value could fall, and selling the house could become harder. Priya's portfolio, assuming it's broadly diversified, spreads her investment across many companies and industries. That's a very different risk profile. But diversification has its own downside. Her portfolio can fall 30% in a bad market. Alex isn't going to open his front door one morning and discover that his kitchen is suddenly worth 30% less. At least, hopefully not. Third, liquidity. This one is easy to underestimate. Suppose Priya needs $15,000 next week. She can sell part of her investments. Alex has $15,000 of equity in his house. But equity isn't cash. He might need a home equity loan, a refinance, or a sale. And those take time. A house can make you wealthy on paper while leaving you relatively cash poor. Fourth, flexibility. Imagine that in year 7, Priya gets an incredible job offer. It's in another state. She accepts. She moves. Done. Alex gets the same offer. Now he has a decision. Sell the house. Rent it out. Manage it remotely. Pay property management fees. Or turn down the opportunity. Homeownership can create stability. But stability and flexibility are opposites more often than people realize. And fifth, the behavioral problem. This may be the biggest one. Our spreadsheet assumes Priya actually invests the difference every month for 20 years. No skipping, no lifestyle inflation, no expensive car, no vacation financed on a credit card. No, I'll start investing again next month. That's a huge assumption, because investing the difference requires discipline. Owning a home does something psychologically different. The mortgage payment happens automatically. You don't wake up every month and decide, should I build equity today? The bank makes that decision for you. Priya doesn't have that forced saving mechanism. She has to choose again and again and again for 20 years. That's not a math problem. That's a psychology problem. This is why the mathematically superior choice isn't always the financially superior choice for a real human being. Imagine two people. Person A is incredibly disciplined. They rent for 20 years. They invest the difference. They don't panic sell during market crashes. They don't spend their savings. They rebalance their portfolio. They keep going when the market falls 30%. For that person, renting can work extremely well. Now imagine person B. They rent for 5 years. They save nothing. Every time their income rises, their lifestyle rises. Their car gets more expensive. Their vacations get more expensive. Their apartment gets nicer. The money they saved by renting never becomes wealth. For that person, the theoretical advantage of renting disappears. And that's why personal finance isn't just finance. It's behavior. So, is buying a home still worth it? Sometimes, but not because a house is automatically a better investment, and not because rent is automatically wasted money. Buying can make a lot of sense when you plan to stay in the same place for many years. When the home price is reasonable relative to local rents. When you have a real emergency fund after closing. When you can comfortably afford the full cost of ownership. And when you actually value the stability of owning. Renting can make more sense when you may move within a few years. When your career is geographically flexible. When home prices are extremely high relative to rents. When you don't want the maintenance responsibility. And, most importantly, when you will actually invest the difference. Because that's the key. So, who won? Alex or Priya? Under our assumptions, after 20 years, Priya has approximately $526,000 in her investment portfolio. Alex has approximately $522,000 in gross home equity. And if he sells, after hypothetical selling costs, around $482,000. So on a gross basis, it's essentially a tie. Priya wins the spreadsheet, but only by a hair. But Alex gets something Priya doesn't. He gets a home, a stable place to live, control over the property, and eventually a mortgage that disappears. Priya gets something Alex doesn't. Liquidity, diversification, mobility, and an investment portfolio she can take anywhere. And there's one more thing. At year 20, Alex still has housing costs. But his mortgage has only 10 years remaining. If he continues to year 30, the mortgage disappears. Priya's rent doesn't. It can keep rising for as long as she needs a place to live. So the comparison doesn't actually end at year 20. It depends on what happens next. And that's why there is no universal answer to, should I buy or rent? The better question is, which financial system am I actually capable of sticking with? Because a theoretically perfect strategy that you won't follow is worth less than a good strategy you can maintain for decades. Buying a home isn't automatically an investment. Renting isn't automatically throwing money away. A mortgage isn't automatically wealth building. And an index fund isn't automatically the smarter choice. There's simply different ways of allocating your money. Alex chose stability. Priya chose flexibility. Alex concentrated his wealth in a physical asset. Priya diversified hers across financial markets. Alex accepted maintenance and transaction costs. Priya accepted market volatility and the responsibility to keep investing. Neither decision was inherently stupid. The real mistake would have been making the decision without understanding the trade-off. Because when you look past the emotional arguments, buying a home isn't a question of rent versus mortgage. It's a question of, what are you willing to give up to build the life you want? And that's where the real math begins. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe to WELTHWORKS. We don't just talk about money. We break down the psychology, mathematics, and hidden trade-offs behind the financial decisions that can shape your entire life. And tell me in the comments, are you buying, renting, or still doing the math. Because sometimes doing the math is the smartest decision you can make. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.